Wednesday morning. A diner in Ohio. A man sitting alone by a window, watching the street like he's waiting for something he knows isn't coming. There's a moment, usually in the middle of doing something ordinary, when you catch yourself thinking, is this it? Not in a dark way, just a quiet wondering. Whether the life you're living right now is the one that was always meant for you, or whether something along the way got misplaced. Most people your age are having that thought. They just don't say it. What I want to share with you today isn't a checklist. It isn't a plan. It's more like holding a mirror up at a certain angle, one most people never think to look from. And in about 8 minutes, I'll share with you the one specific internal shift that researchers at Harvard found to be among the strongest predictors of cognitive health and emotional resilience past the age of 70. It isn't exercise. It isn't diet. It isn't social media or supplements or any of the things being sold to you right now. When the researchers published their findings, it quietly surprised almost everyone in the field. But first, there's someone I want you to meet. His name is Merle. He's 71 years old, retired postal carrier, 34 years on the same route in a mid-sized Ohio town. He knows what it means to walk the same sidewalks until they become part of you, until you stop seeing them and just feel them under your feet. Now, on Wednesday mornings, Merle drives to the same diner he's gone to for 12 years, orders the same thing, sits at the same table by the window. Not because he's a creature of habit in a sad way, but because that seat, that coffee, that light coming through the glass at 9 in the morning, it belongs to him. It's the one corner of the world that asks nothing. What nobody knows is that Merle's been carrying something since his wife passed 2 winters ago. Not grief, exactly. He'd say grief was the first year. This is something quieter, a kind of background hum he's learned to live with, the way you learn to live with a house that settles at night. You don't fear it anymore. You just hear it. He doesn't talk about it, not because he can't, because some things don't need an audience. Here's what's worth noticing about Merle. He still shows up. Same diner, same window, same coffee, going slightly cold before he finishes it. And that specific, unremarkable act of returning to the world, that is the first sign. You might recognize that feeling. The second sign isn't about your body. It's about your relationship with noise. Not sound noise. The difference matters. At some point after 65, many people begin to notice they simply don't want to be around certain kinds of conversations anymore. The ones that go nowhere. The performance of outrage. The endless loop of complaint disguised as connection. There's no drama in it, no falling out, no announcement. You just quietly stop showing up to those rooms. The world calls this withdrawal. The world is wrong. Researchers who study social behavior in older adults have found something consistent. The people who selectively reduce their social circles while deepening the connections that remain tend to report higher emotional well-being than those who simply maintain wide, shallow networks out of obligation. That quiet contraction isn't loneliness, it's discernment. There's a difference between the person who pulls away because the world feels too hard and the person who pulls away because they finally learned what's worth their time. If you've stopped pretending to enjoy conversations that leave you hollow, that's not a sign of getting old. That's a sign of getting wise. The ache, though, and there is one, is that sometimes you can't fully explain it to the people you're pulling back from. You don't want to hurt anyone. You've just run out of patience for performing closeness you don't feel. Most people carry that ache in silence. If you're carrying it right now, you're not alone in that silence. The third sign lives in your mornings. Not what you do in them, how you feel before you do anything. There's a specific quality of morning that starts arriving for some people in their late 60s. It isn't exactly peace, not yet. It's more like a willingness. A low, steady readiness to let the day be whatever it is, without bracing against it the way you used to. When you were 43 and the alarm went off, There was already a list running before your eyes opened. Every morning a negotiation with everything you owed the world. You probably don't remember how exhausting that was until you notice it's gone. Not everyone gets this. That's worth saying plainly. Some people arrive at 70, still waking up braced, still rehearsing arguments that will never be spoken, still carrying the weight of decisions made 20 years ago that cannot be undone. The mind, left unsupervised, is loyal to its oldest wounds. But if your mornings have gotten quieter, not because life got easier, but because something inside you released its grip, that is not an accident. Psychologists who study what they call emotional regulation in older adults have found that the ability to let a feeling move through you without being captured by it tends to improve with age in people who've processed their harder experiences rather than buried them. Not perfectly, not completely, but measurably. Merle told me once, or rather, I imagined him telling me, the way you imagine conversations with people you recognize, that he'd stopped dreading Sundays. For 30 years, Sunday meant Monday was coming. Now Sunday just means Sunday. The light comes through at a certain angle. The coffee is good. The silence has a texture he's stopped trying to name. That shift from bracing to being is the third sign. The fourth sign, and the most surprising, came from a long-term study at Harvard. Now, the thing the researchers found. It wasn't exercise, though exercise matters. It wasn't diet, though that matters too. It wasn't cognitive games, or learning a language, or any of the things that fill the self-improvement section of every bookstore. It was this: the quality of one specific kind of conversation. Not frequent conversation, not any conversation. A very particular kind, what the researchers described as a conversation where you say something true that you weren't sure you were allowed to say. Where you admit something you've been holding privately, not because you needed advice, but because the weight of it had been yours alone for too long. They found that people who had at least one relationship, one where this kind of honesty was possible, showed significantly better markers of cognitive resilience and emotional health in their 70s than those who did not. Even introverts, even people with small, quiet lives. The size of the social circle didn't matter. The presence of that one real witness did. Think about that. Not a therapist, necessarily. Not a spouse, necessarily. A neighbor, a sibling, an old friend you see twice a year but can be completely honest with in the first 10 minutes. Someone who already knows the complicated parts of you and hasn't left. The quiet pain, and I think you already know what I'm about to say, is that many people past 65 believe they've lost their chance at that kind of closeness. That the season for deep friendship has passed. That vulnerability is something that belonged to younger versions of themselves. It hasn't. The research is clear on this. And more than the research, the simple human evidence is clear. People are forming the most honest relationships of their lives, at 72, at 68, at 75, sometimes with people they've known for decades but never quite told the truth to. Merle, by the way, started talking to his neighbor Phyllis on Thursday evenings last spring. They sit on her porch. He doesn't explain what he's carrying. He doesn't have to. She just lets him be there fully, without editing himself. He told me, I imagine him telling me, that it's the first time in 2 years he's felt like his life has a witness. One real witness. That's the thing. The remaining signs are smaller, quieter, easier to miss. The fifth sign: you've stopped apologizing for how you spend your time. Not out of selfishness, out of clarity. There's a difference between not caring what others think and simply no longer having the energy to perform preferences you don't have. The sixth sign is that you've started noticing things again. The specific way light falls at 4 in the afternoon, the sound of a neighborhood settling in for the evening, the smell of something cooking 2 houses down on a Saturday. These aren't small things. Neuroscience has long established that the capacity for sensory presence, for actually inhabiting a moment rather than managing it, is deeply linked to well-being. It gets quieter in many people. under the noise of middle age. In some, it returns. If it's returning in you, that's not nostalgia. That's your nervous system exhaling. And the seventh sign, the quietest of all, not a dramatic piece, not the kind you announce, just a low, steady acknowledgement that certainty was always an illusion, and that the time you spent gripping it might have been better spent sitting on a porch with someone who already knows the complicated parts of you. The signs of aging well are rarely visible in the mirror. They live in the quality of your mornings, in who you choose to be honest with, in the fact that some Sundays, not all of them, but some, just feel like Sundays now. That is more than most people get. I want to leave you with one question, not for the comments, just for yourself, whenever the moment is right. Is there something true you've been carrying alone, that someone who loves you might be ready to hear? You don't have to answer that now. If something in this video brought you a moment of quiet, the kind that doesn't happen often enough, there's more here waiting for you. This channel exists for people who want to think slowly, feel honestly, and live the time they have with a little more intention. And the next video, what researchers found about loneliness and brain health after 70. This changes everything. It continues right where this one left off.